இலங்கையில் இடம்பெற்ற இறுதிக்கட்ட போரின் போது தமிழ் மக்களுக்கு எதிராக நிகழ்த்தப்பட்ட போர்க்குற்ற காணொளிகளுடன் கூடியதாக கெலம் மெக்ரவினால் தயாரிக்கப்பட்ட நோ ஃபயர் சோன் என்ற ஆவணப்படம் சேனல் 4 என்ற தொலைக்காட்சி சேவையில் வெளியாகி பாரிய அதிர்வலைகளை தோற்றுவித்திருந்தது. அந்த படத்தின் இயக்குனர் கெலம் மெக்ரே மீண்டும் ஐக்கிய நாடு மனித உரிமைகள் பேரவையில் நோ ஃபயர் சோன் என்ற ஆவணப்படம் தொடர்பாக நேர்காணல் ஒன்றில் பங்கு பெற்றியுள்ளார். பிபிசியின் முன்னாள் பத்திரிகையாளர் திரு சிவராம கிருஷ்ணன் பரமேஸ்வரன் அவர்களால் இந்த நேர்காணலிடம் பெற்றுள்ளது.
Thanks for coming, flying all the way from London to be with us in Geneva for the screening. Your thoughts and impressions on the film being screened at this chamber, which is supposed to speak about human rights.
Well, I mean, it's very good to see the film being screened here, even the short version of it. I think it's very important because there is the issue of what happened to the Tamils, and that process which began, if you like, with the end of the war 15 years ago, with the slaughter of tens of thousands of innocent civilians who were herded into no-fire zones, what were called no-fire zones, and then were systematically attacked, denied food, denied hospital, medical care. So that process of leading civilians into areas which they call no-fire zones and then systematically slaughtering them, is the only word to describe it, is a pattern that we see repeated today. And that's one of the reasons why, only one of the reasons why it is so important. What happened to the Tamils in that period is that process is continuing to this day in terms of the denial of civil rights for Tamils, the systematic Sinhalization of the north and east, the Tamil homelands. So that process is a continuous process. What began with the war is continuing today. And certainly it suggests, as the international jury is decided or ruled on the question of what's happening in Gaza, that there is a case to answer, that this was a genocide. And I think that the behaviour which has happened since then adds to the case for that. So it is very important because Tamils are still being denied justice. Tamils are still seeking justice. They're still seeking to find out what happened to the thousands and thousands who disappeared. And they're still seeking their civil rights, their human rights. So there is a burning need for justice and truth about what happened then. But there is also a burning need to ensure that what happened then cannot be allowed to continue to happen again. So there is a lesson. There is the justice that is due to the Tamils, and there is the lesson that the international community needs to learn to make sure that what the Rajapaksa playbook, if I can use a terrible word to describe it, is not being repeated and will not continue to be repeated.
Down the line, after a decade, the Tamil version of this award-winning documentary has been made and screened within the UN human rights premises. Do you think a Tamil version is going to make significant impact or is likely to make impact among the diaspora? Do you think the reversioning it in the Tamil is a good idea and it's going to go a long way?
I think it's very important, and I'm very glad that this has been done. Yes, I think it's extremely important. I think that one of the things that we tried to do from the beginning is to put this in as many languages as possible, including Sinhala, and to make those films available for people to see. So I think it's very important. But I think it's also important because for the diaspora, for the Tamil diaspora, there is a whole new generation growing up who may not even be aware, in some cases, of the extent of what happened, of what really happened. And I think so I hope that this film can be part of people understanding their own history, another generation understanding the history of what went on. And I think also that the film itself, I hope, is something which the rest of the world will see and the international community will see and will realise that there is a very, very serious lesson here.
The audience in the hall were multinational. We had people from representing the oppressed Kurdish community. people from the Kurdistan. Then we had indigenous people from Fiji. Then we had people from the occupied Palestinian territory. So the audience was multinational. So what sense you got seeing the multinational audience, seeing a film which reflects very similar to another minority community which was being oppressed like them very similarly? Your thoughts on seeing other oppressed community people here?
Well, I think it's very good, and I think that it's very important that as many people see it and as many people learn the lesson of what happened, and certainly international understanding amongst oppressed communities and international understanding amongst indeed oppressor communities. It's very important that all of these people know and understand what really happened. So I think I hope it's a useful contribution to that.
So we had the English version. Now we have the Tamil version screened within the UN complex, the UN Human Rights Council complex in Geneva. The natural question which follows is, what next? Where do we go from here?
Well, I mean, where we go from here is we have to keep on telling the story. We have to keep on explaining what happened. We have to keep on seeking justice. We have to never forget the disappeared who are still not accounted for. And we must recognize that the oppression being experienced by the Tamil people just now in Sri Lanka is a continuation of the same process that began, well, it had been going on for many decades, but reached its kind of high point in the 15 years ago. But that process is ongoing. This is not history. This is today as well. This is as relevant today, and the oppression goes on today. So it's very important that people learn these lessons for today, not just to understand the past, but to seek justice today.
Would you agree with me with the general perception that the international community, or the allegations against the international community, that they have failed the Sri Lankan Tamils, or the general allegation among the Tamil community that the international community is not victim-centric and the oppressor-centric? Would you agree with that comment?
Yes, I mean, I think one of the interesting things that we saw happening both during the war and after the war is that the international community will its attitude to justice, and I'm speaking very generally here, but particularly if you look at the Western powers, that when Rajapaksa was shifting his axis towards China, then you saw sections of the international community in America in particular. You saw them. There were lots of very good people in America, lots of good people in the State Department who were trying to get justice and were trying to establish what happened and try and ensure that there was justice afterwards. But there were a lot of people who kind of were happy to join in with that because they saw it as a way of getting at Rajapaksa. And then when you saw Sirisena come in and you saw more Western-leaning governments come in, then suddenly whole sections of people started withdrawing from saying we should let's leave this regime alone. Let's not give them a hard time about international about the war crimes, because they are now effectively a pro-Western government. So there's a lot of cynicism, and our response to that, the response to that, can only be that we keep on telling the truth, and we don't let them forget when they were saying there was a problem here and there should be justice. That still exists, and it doesn't matter who's in charge. That still exists and still has to be addressed.
Let the truth prevail.
CMR யூடியூப் சேனலில் இணைந்திருக்கும் நேயர்கள் அனைவருக்கும் எமது நன்றி. காமெண்ட்ஸ் பகுதியில் உங்கள் கருத்துக்களை தெரிவிக்க தவறாதீர்கள். முக்கிய செய்திகள், காணொளி தொகுப்புகள், நேர்காணல் என பலதரப்பட்ட அம்சங்களையும் உங்களுக்காக தருகின்றது CMR யூடியூப் சேனல். CMR என்று சர்ச் செய்து எமது யூடியூப் சேனலை சப்ஸ்கிரைப் பண்ணுங்கள். உங்கள் உற்றார் உறவினர் நண்பர்களோடும் இந்த காணொளி தொகுப்புகளை பகிர்ந்து கொள்ளுங்கள். அருகில் இருக்கின்ற முக்கிய காணொளி தொகுப்புகளையும் தவறவிடாமல் பாருங்கள்.